I really appreciate being invited up from Columbus to help celebrate on this lovely spring afternoon. The point of the thoughts that I'd like to share with you is that providing pathways to employment for people with developmental disabilities is good for them and imperative for this community, or indeed any community. Census statistics tell us that in the Cleveland metro area, 26% of adults with a cognitive difficulty were in the labor force in 2013. That is, either working or actively looking for work, compared to 74% of adults with no identified difficulty. These rates are not significantly different from the national average. Of the people who are in the labor force, the unemployment rate in 2013 for those with no disability was 8%. The rate for those with a cognitive difficulty, 28%. In other words, more than a quarter of all people with a cognitive difficulty were looking for work in this community and unable to find it. We have to do better, in part because the number of people in the labor force is shrinking and will continue to shrink. The percentage of all adults working or actively looking for work is called the participation rate. When the recession hit, the number of people in the labor force declined and the participation rate plunged. This isn't at all unusual. Whenever jobs disappear, people get discouraged and stop looking for work. Usually what happens, though, is that when the labor market starts growing again, people come back into the labor force and the participation rate recovers. This time, that has not happened. The participation rate hasn't stopped falling yet. It's now at its lowest point since February 1978, when a much smaller share of women were in the labor force than is the case now. Economists at the Cleveland Federal Reserve and the Atlanta Federal Reserve have found that the vast majority of this decline is due not to the recession's lingering effects, but to underlying demographic changes. The fact that we are all getting older and 10,000 people are retiring each and every day. Yes, people are working longer, some because they want to, others because they have to, but that isn't nearly enough to offset the wave of retirements, what's called the gray tsunami. Things are even worse in the Cleveland area because the population is older than average and population growth is slow. The state predicts that the number of people in their prime working years, that is between 20 and 60, will decline in the Cleveland area by 87,000 over the next 10 years. This impacts the Cleveland economy in a number of ways. One important way is that the flow of workforce to the area's key industries will slow. These industries are those that serve national and international markets. These industries are extremely important because they bring dollars into the community from outside, which is the only way that you can increase household incomes, wealth, and improve the community's standard of living. Because these businesses can always add new markets because they serve markets around the country and beyond, their growth can be much faster than the growth of the Cleveland area. And this increases the flow of dollars into the region's economy and makes you better off. But if those businesses can't get a steady flow of workers, they can't serve those new markets. Their rational response is to expand their operations in other locations, or even to relocate altogether. In either case, the Cleveland economy fails to achieve its potential, and you are all worse off. And we in Columbus are worse off too. This argument implies that you have to find ways to grow your labor force, including implementing strategies to include more of the developmentally disabled in the workforce. This is an economic imperative. It is not nicey nice. It is not charity. It is something that you must do. Gainfully employing more of these individuals improves economic productivity, increases output, and reduces claims on the public assistance system. Koinonia has a strong focus on helping individuals achieve meaningful career paths. Its approach is tailored to the individual. Individuals in this program will have different needs and abilities, and Koinonia meets them where they are. The approach it takes is to form teams, including professional members, advocates, and family members that help the individual understand their interests and abilities, explore careers that leverage those interests and abilities, set achievable job goals, obtain employment, and advance in a career. Support and accommodation needs that are necessary to help the individual succeed are also identified, and strategies are devised to meet those needs. One very important emphasis of this program is what is called soft skills. Soft skills include job-finding skills such as putting together an effective resume, networking, contacting employers, and interviewing. They also include workplace skills such as working on a team, building positive relationships, dressing appropriately, communicating appropriately, self-management, and understanding and fulfilling workplace expectations. These skills, soft skills, come up over and over again in my discussions with employers in my workforce development work. They are significant skill gaps in both job applicants and job holders, regardless of the industry, regardless of the geographical area, and regardless of the education level of the industry's workers. This focus in Koinonia's program is a tremendous benefit for both the individuals coming out of the program and the companies that employ them. Once the individual is hired, Koinonia continues to work with the individual and the employer, including at least 2 face-to-face meetings per month and resources for the employee and the employer to help ensure the employee's continued success. One very intriguing approach to working with developmentally disabled individuals is to explore the possibility of self-employment. This is something that a seed that I'd like to plant, a 40th birthday present, if you will. This option for those with developmental challenges was spotlighted in a brief study that came out of the University of Minnesota, which included some very, very intriguing case studies. According to the Census Bureau, people with disabilities are nearly twice as likely to be self-employed as the general population. Now, the statistics for small business, the kinds of businesses that we're talking about here, in both Cleveland and Columbus, are very troubling indeed. Among the 100 largest metros in the U.S., Cleveland ranks 90 out of 100 in the percentage of people who are self-employed, and 87 out of 100 in the birth rate of small businesses. And believe me, Columbus is very little better. This has a whole host of negative impacts, negative implications for our economies. Fewer locally owned, locally serving businesses means that a larger share of consumer and business spending leak out of the local economy so that income growth and wealth accumulation is slower than it ought to be. profits also leak out of the local economy. Fewer new businesses with new ideas being born means that established businesses aren't challenged by the new competition. They're more likely to rest on their laurels. Consumer needs are not met as effectively as they might be, and economic dynamism is reduced. I've long argued that entrepreneurial development needs to be included in workforce development strategies as simply another facet of workforce training. Self-employment is clearly not for everybody whom Koinonia works with. Indeed, it's not for everybody, period. Implementing a strategy like this would involve devising a whole new network of supports and partners and programs, but it would be another tool in your kit, and it could be highly rewarding for individuals in the program and for the Cleveland economy as a whole. Thank you.